Good afternoon and welcome to Scrapbooking with a Twist. No, I have not made a layout in a long time. Been sick and busy, crazy busy, mostly with doctor's appointments, but things are starting to slow down. I got to get a blood test tomorrow. Got 3 or 4 doctor appointments next week, and then hopefully it's going to be kind of slowed down for a while. Going to do a whole kit and caboodle layout today. I didn't get that one finished back during its time slot, but I'm going to go ahead and finish it. I'm doing Turkey, my trip to Turkey, and excuse me, and I want to get it finished up, get it in the books, and I'm ready to be done with it. So that's what I'm going to do today. This is going to be a 2-page layout, and I'm just doing 1 page of it today, but it's going to be a 2-page layout. And let me kind of explain to you how it's going to be. This is some really neat paper. What, I put that somewhere. It's P13, and it's like pastel walls, I think is, well, let me, wait, oh, I think I have it right here. Yeah, it's a P13 paper pad, and it's called Pastel Walls, Maxi Creative Pad, called Pastel Walls. And it has some just really neat papers, for background papers especially, in it. So that's what this is. And then this is just a piece of paper that I had in my stash forever. And so I cut it half in 2, and because if you remember, if you've watched any of these videos on my Kit and Caboodle, it's very picture heavy, kind of embellishment light, and I've used a lot of flips because I want to put so many pictures on them, because I don't want a ton of pages in my album. So this page, the flip, is at the bottom, and then the adjoining page, this flip, is going to be at the top. That way when they're folded in my album, this thickness and this thickness will balance out and it won't be too bad. I pulled together some embellishments. I went through my color drawers, I went through my binder and picked out some things. These are kind of the things that I don't think I'm going to use on this page. I may use on the other page, but I don't think I'm going to keep them close, but I don't think I'm going to use them on this page. So the first thing I want to do is just go through the pictures with you, because like I said, I probably won't do the adjoining page on a video. So these are the pictures that will be on the adjoining page. And this was our hotel in Ankara, and it was a beautiful hotel, I'm telling you. Very, like, 5-star. It was gorgeous. In kind of this neighborhood. It was right by downtown, but in this neighborhood, and it was really neat. This won't make it. This is just my friend and I when we came home, I think from actually this evening that we'd gone out to eat and walk. Several of us went out and just walked this neighborhood. And we always take a picture of our reflection in the mirror everywhere we go, and that's this one. And a lot of them make my scrapbooks. This one probably won't, because I don't think I'm going to have room. This is a picture, I hope I'm not too much glare, is a picture of downtown Ankara. Let me get up here a little closer. At rush hour, you can see that it is just shoulder to shoulder. Ankara is like 5.5 million people. And I just wanted to take that picture. But it's kind of crazy how quiet it is for a city that size and with that much traffic and congestion, because you see these signs a lot. I cut this out from one of the pictures that I took, because they don't do horns. They don't let you like toot your horn, because in a lot of countries, I mean, it's just constant. Like Indonesia, some of these other countries, it is just constant horn blowing. And so this was not a crosswalk, and no blowing the horn on your car. This is what I had for supper. We went out and just walked the streets that evening and just explored shops and that kind of stuff. And this is what I had for supper. It was almost like and this salad off over here. It was almost like a a Turkish pizza of some kind on this amazing flatbread. And then this was just one of the shops along the street. Of course, and they don't do Walmart, like we do, Super Walmart. I'm sure they do have things like that in maybe the suburban areas. I don't know, but look how beautiful and clean and pretty those fish are. It was really impressive on how pretty and clean and fresh everything looked. I would have loved to have eaten some of those fish. And then this was a fruit stand that we passed. And these are open late. I mean, like we're getting 9, 10 o'clock at night. They're open late. Look at the size. I have very large hands. Like I could grip a basketball when I was playing basketball. And that cabbage is just huge. And then this is a neighborhood that's just right down the hill from the Ankara castle and a museum that I'm going to show you some pictures of for the other page. And some of it looks pretty bad, but some of it's actually decent, but just so crowded and not our typical neighborhood, but it wasn't too bad. So that's the pictures that you won't see tonight. And then these are the pictures that I am going to scrap tonight. This is a picture. I'll describe this first. This is a mausoleum for Ataturk. And let me get the pictures here. I don't want to get everything all totally crazy messed up because I do have a little bit of organization going on here. This is the outside of that mausoleum. It is gigantic, but I'll read you the journaling in a minute, but he is just so respected and revered. And then this is they have these guards, and kind of like the English guards, they don't move, any of that kind of stuff like in Great Britain. And I was just standing there, took a picture by him. And then, let's see, this is, I'm going to have this so messed up I won't know what I'm doing. And then this is a view of the city out through some walls over to the side that was really cool. So I took that picture. And then on this left-hand side of the page is going to be, I'm going to have this so messed up, is going to be about this museum. Now, this is the Ankara Castle, and this is the museum that's just literally right very near it. And if you look, you see this little part, I don't know if you can see that, but right up in there is the name of that museum. And this is I took a close-up picture, and then, of course, I'll tell you what that name of that museum is in English in a minute. These are just a couple of the pots and things that were in that museum that I'm going to put on that other page. And so, anyway, those are just the pictures, because I told you I would take you on a tour of Turkey. And then this, of course, is that old castle that in the museum is just very near it. You can walk over to that castle and see it. Anyway, this is what's going to be on this page. So let's just get started. The history of Turkey is very interesting to me because, of course, I teach Bible study, and Turkey was such an area. Paul was in Turkey. I think Peter went to Turkey. Just an area that amazes me because there's so much biblical history there. But so we're going to put this one down right up there. So I loved our trip to Turkey. It was just amazing to me. Turkey is called several things. Back in biblical times, a lot of time if you're reading, it'll talk about Asia Minor because it was referred as that. Sometimes there are different places like Galatia or Phrygia or something like that it will refer to, and that usually was a particular region of that area or called after who was ruling it at that time. This is just a picture that I took in the museum talking about the Fergians, and I'm going to include it on there. It doesn't go with that castle, but that's where I could make it fit, so that's where it's going to go. I may need to raise that just a little. You know what? It's too late. It's already down. I was going to move that over just a little, but I think it'll be fine. I'm going to put that right up there. But it was very interesting. Very, very interesting. And then I think I'm going to try to make that fit there. So this side of the page is about the mausoleum. This side of the page, all the flips and everything, are about the museum. So let's get this one down. I wrote myself a note on the back of some of the pictures to remember where I thought I was going to put them. That doesn't mean I won't change my mind and put them somewhere else, but at least that's where I thought I was going to put them. I kind of went through and laid out and speculated, and just so it would, like I said, I'm really ready to be done with this one. So let's see if we can get this up here. I think maybe like that. And then I've got some things I'm gonna put that I'd made in a swap that I kind of adapted for this to use for those artifacts that I showed you. All right, so that looks fairly decent. Okay, now let's see. These are some of the little things I was planning on using over here. I had this little thing that said date, so I inked it up and used that little ticket because we are going to a museum. Not like we physically had a ticket, but sort of. So I'm gonna hang on to those little things, see if I can work them in. I just went through my color drawers and pulled a bunch of the, I call it greenery, even though it's not green, to use on this. And this has been in my little chipboard thing forever, ever, ever and a day. And I thought, you know, I might, that little mandala doily looking thing kind of reminded me of Turkey. So I thought, yeah, I think I'll pull that out. So let's see. We can get some of this kind of layered up where it'll kind of make a cluster for us. I think we're going to have to move over because I don't want to get over onto that too far. So let's try that. I had another pot somewhere, wherever it went. Maybe this one. This may have been it that I was going to put there. I made 3 pots for a cluster for something that we had. So I think that is what I'm going to do there. So let's get those down. That's pretty close. That's not exactly maybe the way I had it, but it's pretty close. So let's get it down. And I put the date on the very first page of all of my Turkey stuff where I had the map and all that. So I really didn't have to have another date, but I decided I'd throw another date on here just to remind me when it was, and I found that. I kind of liked it. So, all right, so there's that. And this was in a swap, but I don't know who made it. I may have made it. It may be. I think I did make it. So I want to just start layering these things up. So I just don't want to get up into that writing, but I want plenty of room to do my flip. And I'm going to use this little This, like I said, this thing has been, it's been in a chipboard drawer, and then I did away with the chipboard drawer. And it finally ended up in my color drawer, my brown color drawer. And that's where I finally ended up using it from. So I think we're just going to do that and let that. Now, I wanted some stuff coming out from here, so I better get that in there before that dries and I can't get it under there. Just to let's see what we can get going here. Maybe something like that. And then maybe, let me see if I have another one of these. Yes. I have another one of these. So let's, because I kind of wanted something out the other side too. So let's put our pot on there and then maybe do something coming out over there. So let's get our pot on there. I'm trying out a light that my daughter had. I hope it's better. And if it is, I may get two so that I have one on each side. But I don't think the glare is as bad with it, and it does give good light. So I'm trying it on this video, and then I'll decide if I'm going to get one or not. And really about all I'm using on this, see if I have one of the gold ones, on this layout for embellishments, some tickets, some of these little, all this little stuff. This is a punch, the one I'm using right now, and then I'm going to use one that, or some that were die cuts also. Let's do that. And that. And this. Sometimes it's just okay to not have a page full of embellishments. I am going to I just matted these two together, and I'm just going to put them down here, and this is the only embellishment on this page. Now, I'm going to do more on the other, but on this page, this is going to be it. I am using liquid adhesive because this is a textured paper, has a little bit of texture, and I always am afraid that just a tape runner, I nearly always put some liquid adhesive on my stuff. Even if I use tape runner, I usually also have some liquid adhesive. Okay, so I think that's the front page. Then we've got the little flip, and I used a piece of the stripe that from this to actually cover the little part of the flip that was there. I didn't have to, but I just liked it. And so here is what I want on this second page, on the top part. Actually, I think this was supposed to go on the bottom. When I was showing you the pictures, I think I got these kind of mixed up a while ago. And then we'll come back here, little thing. I dropped something, of course. Oh, long way to the floor. I don't even see it. Oh well, I've got more, so I'm not going to worry about it. Maybe that was it. Anyway, I found this in my binder, and this is kind of a suede. I made it for something else, or made two of them, I don't know. And it's kind of a suede, and I thought, well, that's kind of neat. So I decided I would use it and maybe put there wasn't room to actually put the journaling on there. Let me read you the journaling. It says, the Museum of Anatolian Civilization, located near the Ankara Castle. The museum is a walk through the history of the area that would later become Turkey, also known as Asia Minor. It contains artifacts from 500 BC. The Hittites were the first civilization in the area around 2000 BC. The Phrygians ruled much of the same area around 1200 BC. It was under Persian control, if you remember your Bible stories about Daniel and them going to Babylon, and it was under Babylonian control for a while, and then the Persians took it over from them under Cyrus. It was also under the Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Turkish Empire. In the early 1900s, after World War I, the reign of the sultans ended, and Turkey was divided. It was divided between some of those European states, actually, after World War I. In 1920 to 1922 was the Turkish War for Independence under General Mustafa Kemal, I think it's Kemal, who took the name Ataturk, and most of you have probably heard of Ataturk. Turkey gained her independence, and Ataturk served as president of the Republic of Turkey until his death in 1938. And then these pictures over here are pictures of his museum. The Ataturk Mausoleum, the extravagant tomb and memorial indicate the deep admiration of Ataturk by the Turkish people. He was the revolutionary leader of the new republic, and he designated Ankara as its capital. So that is my journaling. I kind of like to give myself a little historical review in my journaling when I'm documenting my trips. So let's get this little whatever you call this, I forgot, scroll or whatever down. And I was gonna kind of tilt it, but then when I put my journaling on there, it didn't look right tilted, so it needed to be straight. Okay, so that looks pretty straight. I need to go ahead and do the twist while I'm kind of just gluing some of this stuff down. The twist tonight is, I did a quote from Benjamin Franklin, and that quote says, "All princes sin with David, but few confess with him." I've been teaching Psalms, and we were in Psalm 38 this week, and that verse just flew off the page, or that quote came up in something when I was researching, and then that psalm just began to fly off the page to me as I began to study that psalm and read about David and what all was going on, actually in 17 and 18. 17 tells about him talking about how we need to, stay with God and depend on God through hard times. And then, what did I do with those? And then chapter 18, he begins to tell about some of his hard times, his troublesome times. And he really does have some really hard times. His enemy, he gets so spiritually sick, so spiritually out of sorts, that he literally becomes physically ill. And it describes, and I believe they're true physical ailments, but David believes that they're his own fault because of his own sin. And so he begins to name all these ailments, and it's horrible, the things that he lists. He talks about, festering sores and just terrible ailments. And whether that's just a metaphor to describe how bad he is spiritually, or whether that's truly his physical state, I don't know that we can be absolutely sure. But whatever it is, he was in misery, absolutely in misery. And but he just continues to say, it's because of my sin. It's because of my sin. And so he felt estranged from God, and that God was far from him, and he was just going through a terribly, terribly tough time. And so he finally, in verse 18, he confesses his sin, and he says, Lord, the verse says, I confess my iniquity, my sin troubles me. So David was troubled by his own sin. And if we're troubled by our own sin, just imagine how it breaks the heart of God when we sin. And so David says, I confess my iniquity. And then he goes on to plead with the Lord to have mercy on him and to come to him, and to, David wants that right relationship back with God. And he knows that it's his own fault. And so he is so sickened by his own sin and remorseful of his sin. And I did want this down here. I forgot. I changed my mind on that. And so he calls on God. He calls on God. And so the lesson to me, and what Benjamin Franklin's quote tells me, and what I learned from it, is that David owned up to his own sin. He claimed his own sin. He took responsibility for his own sin. Just for an example, the other day I had three of my grandsons over here, and one of them was totally grounded from YouTube. And so I walk over there, and he's on YouTube, and he ended up actually getting a spanking for it. And he was on YouTube, and I said, are you on YouTube? And the first thing out of his mouth was, well, Canon was on it and I just picked it up. And I said, no, that's not what I asked you. I asked you if you were on YouTube, because you know that you are not supposed to be on YouTube. And that is being disobedient, and you can't get by with it. And so, of course, he was, oh, I'm sorry. I said, well, I'm sorry too. But he got a spanking for it. But the first thing he wanted to do was to blame someone else. And often I think we're the same way. We want to say, oh, everybody else was doing it. Or I went to that R-rated movie because that's what everybody else wanted to see. I didn't really want to, but that's what everybody else wanted to see. Well, you can say no. You can not go. And David didn't do that. He didn't blame anybody. He didn't blame God. He didn't blame anyone else. He took ownership. And he didn't claim to be a victim. Not only was that one grandson trying to put the blame off on someone else, he was the victim. He just picked it up and it happened to him, And David didn't do that. David messed up many times in his life. And I think that's why he's such a good person for us to study, is because he messes up, but he takes ownership of his mess ups. He says, yep, I did it. I was wrong, and I did it. And God, I confess my iniquity to you. And we can't get right with God over anything that we've done until we take ownership of it. We can't confess something that we're not taking ownership of. It's just plain and simple. We can't do it. So hopefully you got a lesson out of that, like I did, because I certainly did. Now I'm going to have to cover this up because it says Texas Theater, and that ticket does not apply to this mausoleum. So I'm going to cover it up with some little greenery, some of those little twigs and things. This was one of those pots like the other one. It was just like this, it was just like this one. And I just cut it into a new shape and made it look more like a picture, just so it would look, and put a little more inking on it so it would look a little different. So I'd have a little variety. And then we'll also do some little twigs. So let's see. Oh, this was I found this. I have that ideology, the little words and everything, ideology from Tim Holtz, and it said in memory of. And so I'm going to put that right up here to pointing to that mausoleum that was in memory of Ataturk. So there's that. And then I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to cover, let's see if we can tuck that under there. And then I'll cover that. Yeah, that'll work. All right. This was really our turkey trip. Oh, I loved that trip. It was so good. Learned a lot, saw so much. I think we were gone like 2 weeks. And it was just really good. Really, really good. All right, so there, that will cover Texas Theater pretty good. Let's see if I have another one of these little light colored ones I needed. No, I don't think I do. Let's see, I can cut a little piece off of this one. Oh no, maybe I don't need another light colored one. Maybe I just need to. Yeah, let's just do that. I know this isn't, you know, a tremendous amount of, I thought I had 2 of the maroon ones. There's another one. I'm going to use it, I think, over here. Okay, let's see. I need this to point down. I love this little punch. I have used it and used it and used it and used it. Okay, there's that. And then I had 2, enough to do 2 little ones out of the maroon. So I'm going to put them over on this side. I stuck that down pretty good, didn't I? Like I said, picture heavy and embellishment light, but it's the memories that really matter. Okay, I think that's good. Now, I think I'm going to put, I've got some of these left over, and I think I'm going to do something right up here. Let's see if we can make this look. I think that's just too plain to me. So I'm going to do something, maybe. We'll see. Maybe just the 3 again, like that. Maybe move it over just a little. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. It's nothing special, but it's just, I think it's what I'm going to do. I love my flip flaps, and making them the way like I made this one, you can make them any size. You can put them anywhere. I love my flip flaps. So if you've watched me do this turkey series in Kit and Caboodle, you know I've used one on nearly every page. By the way, down in the description box, there will be a link to the whole Kit and Caboodle. You may have already watched all of them, but there will be something down there in the description box. And it's a really neat hop that we did over on Ginger's Corner. And we created a kit, or you could use a kit, but I created this kit to do my turkey trip. And different people did different things. Some of them created kits, some of them used kits that they had, just different things like that. And I had a little bit of paper specifically that I had bought for turkey, and I used that, and then some that just I pulled from my stash to go with it. All right, so there's the first part of that, or the second actually part of that flip flap. And there is the last part of it. And I think that's it. So let me see if I can get you some close-ups. If not, I'm going to try anyway. Let's see if we can do this. Get you some close-ups. Thanks for dropping by and spending time with me, and I just appreciate you so much. I thank you so much for those of you that have kind of kept track of me when I was feeling so bad, but I'm feeling much better now. And I do have some follow-up appointments to find out about a bunch of tests. And but thank you so much for your sweet prayers and your thoughts and your just keeping up with me. I appreciate it so much. So thanks for dropping by, and have a blessed day and be a blessing to someone else.